Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Money Mondays. My name is Belinda Ray. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at GPCOG, here with my colleague.
Paul Johnson. I am the Director of Economic and Community Development here at GPCOG.
And
And
we're,
go ahead.
you
No,
just,
you
nope,
go.
nope, nope, it's you.
I'm going to start.
I don't know which way I'm going to be pointing when this gets aired. Anyway, you, make it you.
All right, I'm going to start.
Yep.
I love taking a week off and we come back and still everybody shows up to Money Mondays. So thank you.
Woo!
I always get nervous when we skip a week that like nobody's going to show up.
They missed us.
Today,
They
my
missed you.
topic is was one of the data tools we've been working on at GPCOG. And it is a map to help your residents and perhaps your staff members understand their recent tax bill history and and perhaps a result of a revaluation if you are undergoing a revaluation. I am doing this with a couple of people and it's ever evolving. So if you're interested in what I show you and you think your municipality might benefit from it, please reach out to me. I'm going to show you Scarborough because I live in Scarborough. Scarborough is not using this tool, to be very clear, but when we're all working on the tool, and it's always nice for us to work on our hometown. So with that, I will show you what we are doing. And here you can see it opens up to a map of Scarborough. This is after the recent reval, and you can see that it has in the top there, you can see that it has 10,145 properties in view, and it has a median tax change. But what this map allows you to do is you can go down into individual land parcels, so even separate of a reval, and you can actually click on that land parcel and you can get some data from the land parcel. So here I just randomly clicked something, but you can see here it talks to Vision database in the background. It talks to the assessor value history, and it gives you some really good information about the property in general. You can look at what happened at the recent 2018 reval in Scarborough for this specific property. You can look at the more recent, 2024 revaluation. This is old data because we worked on it. So we haven't updated this, so to speak, but we link directly to the reval report. And then you can actually look at some fun stuff about the tax bill history of this property. As many people know, there's always lots of claims of what's happened to my tax bill and what happened to my neighbor's tax bill. And this actually aggregates lots of data for the last 10 years to give everybody a realistic idea or the real idea of what's happening to the property tax bill. And then, of course, you can link out to the property card. So one of the things that lots of residents don't know is how to use Vision, or the power of looking at their own property card. So you can link straight to the property card. They can check their property card. A lot of times with a reval, there's a 6-month period or a 6-week period where they can check the property card to make sure for errors or for any sort of updating. And this is the type of tool that you can give to your residents. You could implant this right on your website if you wanted to. And then you could also do some fun filters here, right? You could do it by certain years built or valuations. You could look at taxes that just increased, taxes that just decreased. And I'll just click one more here, see if I can. Oops. Let's look at, I don't know, let's look on this property off Payne Road. And this just gives you another example of a property in Scarborough. So again, if you look at this tool and it's something that you said, oh man, this looks like something we could use for our residents, or some of that information is appealing, some of it isn't, you could always reach out and say, hey, could you do something similar but have X, Y, and Z information on it? We have another tool that I'm going to show next week that actually talks about the cost to serve for these different property blocks as well. So it's a very similar looking dashboard, but when you look at it, it actually talks about the effects of the mill rate on actual census blocks and census tracts within your municipality. So it looks similar to this and it's related, but I'm going to save that for next week because now you get to listen to Belinda. But of course, reach out to me if you have any questions. If that looks like a tool that's cool, I'm here and willing to chat about what you guys might need.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, let me get this ready to go here. uh, I'm not, am I sharing already? No. Okay. Sorry, man. It looks like if we mess up our routine, change up our routine at all, I apparently can't figure out what I'm doing. Give me just a second. Here we are. All right, there we go. And here's the share. Uh, yeah, all right, that's the one I want. Okay, sorry guys. We'll have Becca cut that out maybe so it doesn't look like I fiddled around. Um, So yeah, I wanted to talk to you today about Safe Streets and Roads for All. This grant has been released for its fourth cycle, and this is one of the first ones coming out having been realigned with the priorities of the current administration. So there have been some changes, not a lot of changes, but a few changes. We'll talk about those a little bit. So Safe Streets and Roads for All in the first 3 years gave 3 billion, nearly 3 billion to 1,600 communities across the United States. And you can see here we are up here in Maine. We have gotten some awards. And in fact, GPCOG has had 3 awards. Altogether, those awards total about $1 million. We got one in 2022, the first year of the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, to develop action plans. And then that enables us and all of our communities to then seek future Safe Streets and All Roads for All grants in order to implement some things, in order to do some demonstration projects or implementation projects. So in 2023, we did get 636,000 for supplemental planning and demonstration projects. That is currently underway. And in the 2024 cycle, we received 100,000 again for supplemental planning and demonstration projects, this time in our rural communities. The first one was for the more urban communities, which were first to get an action plan. The 2024 one, we are awaiting that contract. It has been delayed a little bit. We have submitted the contract, but we're waiting for counter signatures. And I suspect there might be some updates to the contract, given the fact that the notice of funding opportunity has been updated this year. With this grant, there are, as always, 2 pots of money. One is for planning and demonstration grants. All of the grants we have received in the past have been in this bucket. There's another bucket called implementation grants. We have always suggested that people focus on the planning and demonstration. We did in the first year, after we had an action plan, we did have a community go for an implementation grant. That was Biddeford. They put together a fantastic application. And when they didn't receive it, they did a debrief. And essentially, what it came down to was not having the level of fatalities that other communities had. So implementation grants were going to the communities with the highest fatality rates, and we didn't have them here in the region. And that was the reason that Biddeford didn't get that. They did get a big planning and demonstration part of that grant. So they did get a grant to do a lot of work, but not the implementation. Now, all of this said, there have been a lot of changes to the implementation grants this year. Well, I say a lot, not a lot. There is still a percent of funds that is required to be spent in underserved communities. That's true for the planning and demonstration grants too, but there's a new definition of underserved. And we'll talk about that in a bit. With the grants, with the implementation grants, there's a priority to rural locations now. They also will consider whether the award would help with the geographic distribution of the grant. Maine has not received an implementation grant for this particular grant before, so that's possible that could up our odds of getting one here. This is interesting. This year now, your application will lose points if you reduce vehicle lane capacity. So if you were going to lose a lane to put in a bike lane or to put in a bus lane or to do traffic calming, that now will potentially work against you in your application. That doesn't happen until you make it through the first rounds though, and that's kind of where they would start whittling out applications when they get into the highly competitive part. And then the last one that's new is that applicants with a higher rate of killed and serious injuries per 1 million in federal funding may receive special consideration. So those are some of the changes to implementation grants. Planning and demonstration are still the grants we are more likely to get. There are far more of those being awarded. So we would still suggest that's where you focus unless you've got a really compelling case. And there are some communities that may have a really compelling case. So eligibility, municipalities, metropolitan planning organizations like GPCOG, counties, tribal governments, or a combination, any combination of these entities working together. If you're going for an implementation grant, there's an added piece. You have to have ownership, some level of ownership over the road where you want to implement your project, or an agreement with the responsible agency. So what has changed from previous years for both of these? There's one deadline this year. You may recall last year there were 3 deadlines, and you could submit to any one of them, and the funds were given out as available, and there were still plenty available in that last round. But this year it's one round, June 26th, 5 p.m. is the deadline. The maximum for a planning and development grant has come down. It is not 10 million, it's now 5 million. You used to be able to, if you did not have an action plan, pull together from a lot of different plans and say, well, this one satisfies that requirement and this one and this one. They've now said if you're doing that, it's a maximum of 3 plans. You can't pull from more than 3 places to meet all the requirements of an action plan. Good news for anyone in the GPCOG region, you have regional action plans, you are all covered. This is nice. There's a pre-application screening available. So if you get your application ready, and you get it to them by May 9th, they will go through a pre-application screening with you to tell you, are you eligible and what might you need to do here? Some other differences are action plans no longer require equity considerations. As I said, there's a new definition for underserved community, and that is communities that are represented on the areas of persistent poverty map. So you'd want to look at that. Those are kind of the same communities that would have appeared on previous maps. So the definition has changed, but the communities that are represented here are pretty much the same communities in our region. There's Biddeford has some census tracts, Portland does, Westbrook does. I think that's about it within the GPCOG region. The selection criteria are more or less unchanged for these planning and demonstration grants, but they may prioritize areas with fatality rates above 17.5 per 100,000 people. And we're around 7 or 8 per 100,000, so we're lower. They also might prioritize areas with no prior funding, and we have received funding. So these things could work against us, but again, that's what they do in the very last round. So if you've made it through a couple of hoops and then you get to the end, this is where you might be eliminated. So some examples of what you can do with these supplemental planning and demonstration grants. The activities include updates to your action plan, complementary plan development, road safety audits, data collection. You can continue to do engagement, progress reports, demonstration projects. Obviously, that's kind of the big exciting thing we all like to think about, but also studies. If you're looking and trying to figure out if an intersection needs traffic lights, or if roundabouts are a good idea. These are things you can do as well. If you are looking to figure out what you might want to do, FHWA has a nice page of proven safety countermeasures. These are the pedestrian and bicyclist ones, but they also have some around speed management, roadway departure, and intersections. So those are good to look at. Key features, I have the funding, minimum and maximums here for both of them. The cost share is an 80-20 split. So if it's a $100,000 grant, the total project is 125 and you're responsible for 25 of that. The match can be in kind. I have the priorities. The difficulty, this one, it's a pretty easy grant. If you haven't done one of these before, then I'd put it at 5. If you've done them before, I'd put it lower. If you're going for implementation, I'd put a little higher. So the deadline, as I said, is June 26th by 5 p.m. There will be one more round of these in 2026. So if you get ready this round and you don't submit, that's okay. You'll be ready for next year. All of our GPCOG communities are eligible. Here are some things you can do to find out more or look at next steps. And I've got links to our local plans here, the website, all of these things you might need to find out more. And that is that. All right, 9:15. I think over and out, we're done,
We're
right?
done.
Next
That's
week,
not
we have
like
a
us.
special guest. We have a special guest next week. Andrea Berry is going to be talking about New England Environmental Finance Center. So we're looking forward to that. Come back, hang out with us. We'll see you later. Oh, 9:16. This one's free. We won't collect payment this week. Have a great week. Thanks, everybody.